All right, folks, welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Football Champs After Dark every Friday night at 10 p.m. I am your host, Jim Day. And don't forget, we are a proud member of the Full Time Fantasy Podcast Network, 16 podcasts strong, 30 hours of equal, beautiful podcasting each and every week. Be sure to check us out at fulltimefantasy.com. Look at the podcast link, and you'll see all the great podcasts we have, and we're still growing. But we have a special guest that I want to bring in right away. It's a longtime friend of mine, somebody that I've known in this industry for a very long time, and that's Mr. Smitty. Smitty, how you doing tonight? Tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Give them the lowdown if they don't know Smitty, what they need to know.
What's up, man? Glad to be here. Long time, friend of you, and we're kind of dinosaurs in this industry. I've been doing the fantasy football thing for 15 years. The skinny on my background would be I'm on the world's longest fantasy football radio show. It's been going 23 years. I've been a part of it for 15. There's no documentation of anybody on terrestrial radio that we can find that has had a longer show. It's on CBS Sports Radio. We've been on NBC Sports Radio before, but I've been doing that for forever and launched my career basically on that show, dropping bold predictions and doing things and landing those over and over again, kind of created a place for me in the industry. And then I've been doing it ever since. So you can find me over at sleeperu.com and the Fantasy Football Show. And then on YouTube, my new YouTube channel, the Fantasy Football Show.
Oh, there you go. And of course, my co-host tonight, Mr. Frank Scandurro. Frank, how you doing?
Good, Jim. Good. Finally back to myself. I was sick 2 weeks ago, and then last week we had a wedding we had to go to. But glad to be back on the show and ready to talk some football.
Unfortunately, Andy can't join us tonight. He actually has to work. That's the life of being a New York City firefighter. Sometimes just has to work on Friday nights, unfortunately for us. But he most likely will be back next week. Before we really get into anything major fantasy, Smitty, I want to talk about this virtual fantasy summit you have coming up. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about it, what you're trying to accomplish, what's going on with it?
Yeah, I'll have a link for you soon when we have that up and ready to go. We're going to be plugging it hardcore on Instagram. So if you're following me at the Fantasy Football Show or any of my platforms, we'll have a link really soon for that seat. You can buy seats for it now, but it's a virtual summit. We're getting together some of the best fantasy football writers and sites and having them come together and talk dynasty and provide everybody tips, tricks. How do you build the best dynasty roster? How do you evaluate players? What's the best way to go about trading? How do you plan ahead to make your dynasty roster flourish for years and years and make sure you're making the right decisions at the right time? And I think we're going to talk after this about getting you probably in there as a speaker. If you want.
I did get an invite on Twitter, so I told him I would talk to you tonight about it and get a little bit more info.
So we have like Harris Football. We have a bunch of pretty well-known names speaking, and then of course I'm going to be speaking as well, and I'm kind of hosting the summit. But it's going to be awesome, man. It's going to be something that we plan to replicate in August for a redraft type of summit. But it's just an awesome way for people to gain a ton of knowledge. It's like going to like a fantasy football camp over the course of like 2 days and just jumping in and out of guest speakers that are coming in. And I'll be doing some of the interviewing of some of the speakers, and then partner Kerry Duke, who's running the summit for me. He's going to do a lot of the interviews as well.
Yeah, I look forward to that. That sounds interesting. We seem to be seeing more and more of these kind of things, and it never hurts. It absolutely never hurts. You get different looks and different feels from different analysts. You can really get an idea of different ways to attack this game that we all love. So I kind of like these things a lot, and more than likely I'll say yes, but I got to get more info on when and all that good stuff.
So Smitty, is it like you pay for, I don't know, I'm throwing a random number, but say you pay $10 and then you got like a login, and so you can just, if you're doing it for 48 hours with all these different guests and stuff, you just log in when you get a chance and listen to, or log in when you see who's supposed to be coming up? Is that
Yeah, good question. So it is $10 actually to get in, and then to have like an on-demand access, there'll be some upgrade features where you can like come back and if you missed a speaker, because it's all going to be played in sequence, so you can't, if you missed one, you missed one, but you can upgrade to try and go back and check out what anybody said in the past, or if you want to have access to that content later on. But yeah, it'll be $10 to get in. Stop in when you can with that $10 seat and just watch what you want when you want, or when it's airing. And kind of like as if you were at a real summit, you wouldn't be able to necessarily go see somebody that had already spoken, but we will have that upgrade feature so you can go back.
So there's options.
There are
options.
Yeah, there will be options. So I'll have more of that info for you soon, so that people could sign up. And then if you are involved, you're going to want to send that out to your community. So they will get a link. If you are involved, you're going to be sending them a link of where they can go to see you speak. So if you're interested, stay tuned.
Well, good luck. That sounds like something that can really help even, get the industry better than it already is.
Yeah, and you're working together. I mean, honestly, I've been doing this a while, and it's the one industry I've ever been a part of where there's no negative for collaborating with a fellow fantasy football site or analyst. You don't lose any. There's so much opportunity for people to follow multiple people. And I think it only enhances all of us to cross-pollinate our populations of people, let them overlap and learn from everybody, because, like you said, it's going to make the industry, better and get us all collaborating and trying to provide even more, accurate, more out-of-the-box type thinking content to the followers. So, yeah, I agree.
The only point I have to point here is that, I like you, Smitty. You're a nice guy, but I don't know if I could cross-pollinate with you, buddy. Just not sure you're my type, but hey, we all have a type. Okay, let's get into some news. And really, there's only one big piece of news that came out this week, and that's the fact that Zeke Elliott met with Roger Goodell, and obviously everybody came to a happy ending, and he's not going to get a suspension. So I know that, Smitty, I know you're a big Alvin Kamara guy. I know you have him as your number one running back. Where are you sitting with Zeke?
So Zeke's been my 1.02 locked and loaded, up until that incident. But the incident just had me kind of worried a little bit. If he got suspended for 2, 3, 4 games, you didn't know. You knew it'd probably be 1 or 2 at a max. But it just had me on my heels a little bit, ready to throw, McCaffrey or I don't think I would have moved him. I don't think I would have actually moved him down. It would just been like, hey, he's not as close to Kamara as he could have been. So for me, nothing changed once we found out he wasn't going to be suspended. Kamara's been my lock at 1.01, 1,500 total plus yards, back-to-back seasons. He's only been in the league 2 years. He runs 190 to 200 times. That's a recipe for staying healthy as a running back, in my opinion. And, 13 to 15 TDs is what you're going to get. I think he approaches 90 receptions this year. So for me, I love Zeke. He was one of the best running backs, if not the best, depending on the stats you look at, once they acquired Amari Cooper on. So, I mean, you can't go wrong with either. I love both of them. If I have the 1.01 in 2 separate drafts and I'm drafting side by side, I may take Zeke in one and Kamara in the other. That's how close they are.
Well, I'm going to pass it over to Frank because he's sitting over there pumping his fist saying, ooh, Kamara, yeah, number 1, yeah. So tell us, Frank, obviously you agree.
Yes. I think, Kamara's my 101 overall and Zeke's my 102, just like Smitty. I'm from New Orleans. I watch Kamara do it every Sunday. We don't have Ingram here. Now, we did sign Murray, but I don't think Murray's going to – Ingram – I would say with Ingram and Kamara, it was more like a 60-40 split last year once Ingram came back. And I think this year it's going to be more like a 72, 75 to 30-ish split, 25, 30-ish split.
We'll have to work on that math skill. But,
right. Well, it's going to be somewhere in that range where –
See, I'm not sure I agree with that. And I'll tell you why. Just for what Smitty talked about, the fact that they get the production out of him, the efficiency out of him with only 190 to 200 touches on the ground, they don't really need to give him any more. As a matter of fact, it's better not to give him more.
I love this argument that people have against our stance of Kamara because we're the same. But I love it. It's like, what about Lat Murray, Smitty? And I'm like, what about him? Like he's a lesser version of Ingram, in my opinion. You can make the argument either way there, but you want him getting 190 carries. You do not want him getting 225, 230 carries. He is built perfectly for that 190, 200 range that gets him 80 to 90, maybe even 100 receptions. You don't know. He's totally capable of being a 100 reception receiver. The more you give him on the ground, the less receptions he'll have. It's going to wash just fine. And if he takes 1 or 2 goal line TDs away from him, big deal. He'll make up for that with the extra 10, 20 receptions that he gets. So
I did my team projections while the last couple weeks. I've had some downtime without doing the podcast because of being sick and everything. So I have Kamara 218 carries for 1,068 yards, 14 touchdowns on the ground. And then I have him for 125 targets with 93 catches for 843 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. So that puts him right at about 1,800 yards. It gives him over 400 points,
Totally doable.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in this offense this year.
I'm not going to argue with either one of you. Look, I look at it this way. I have 4 in my top tier running backs. Barkley, Elliott, Kamara, and Christian McCaffrey.
See, Barkley's everybody's one on one.
Let me finish my thought.
All right.
Those 4 are in my top tier. So, I drafted so many drafts that I have a piece of each of them if I get one of those early drafts. And that's, I try to tell people don't get locked into just one guy. If that's why I like tiers. Using tiers, I don't have to feel that I have to draft. In my case, I still have Barkley number 1. I think the offensive line is going to be improved. I think the passing game will be okay with the receivers they have, Ingram coming back, Golden Tate there, Sterling Shepard. They'll be okay. I mean, it is what it is. But the offensive line being improved, I think, makes a big play. And I think Barkley still puts up monster numbers just because I think the kid is that good. But the fact of the matter is I have equal shares of Barkley. I have equal shares of all of the other 3 in all of my leagues. And I don't really have any problem with anybody making a case for any one of those 4 being number 1.
Agreed. And the one thing I always tell people, for me, if I have to rank them, I'm not bumping McCaffrey out of my top 4. I'm not bumping Barkley out of my top 4. Let me make that clear. I'm not calling either one a bust. But when you look at Kamara and now Zeke with the suspension threat gone, they're the only 2 that don't have really any red flags. And I know you could say McCaffrey is a lock for this, a lock for that. They used him a ton.
Yeah.
I don't think he's at the point where he's going to get hurt yet, but he was overworked to an extreme degree last year. And why fix what isn't broken? Why does he gain this weight? Added weight, sure, might absorb more in the upright position, but you hit the ground again and again and again with 10 more pounds, whatever. I don't even know if we know how much he gained weight-wise, but muscle weighs more than fat. You got to assume he's up a good 10, 15 pounds. And if he's hitting the ground over and over, he's more susceptible to injury. And then Barkley, yeah, I agree with you. The numbers will probably be there, but that offense is not going to be what I think everybody expects. They're going to have a tough time moving the chains. He's going to have to earn every one of his TDs. He won't be handed a lot of easy touchdowns.
No, he wasn't handed a lot last year. He still did it as a rookie. So I think the only thing that slows him down is injury, and you can say that about any of these guys.
True.
Just like everybody else, though, like that's the top 4, right? So the difference, though, like Jim, is Barkley is my 103. He has more yards in my projections than Kamara does. He just has less touchdowns, which, if you look at the offenses, is feasible. Kamara had 15 rushing touchdowns last season.
I'm not taking anything away from Kamara.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like I gave him 14 on the ground. So the difference for me, like everybody's like, how can you put Kamara first? Well, because I think Kamara is going to have more touchdowns, which gives him more fantasy points. So for me, if they're equal in yards, which I have shares of Barkley all over the place like you do, because I'm in, I'm not in as many leagues as you, but I'm in about close to 20 now. So I have Barkley, I have a couple Zeke, and I have a couple Kamara.
I just started my 67th.
Jeez. So, and I will say this, Smitty, the Cowboys.
Hi, my name is Jim, and I have a problem. I'm an addict.
Yeah, you're in an asylum right now with a backdrop.
Right,
That's what you are.
I did 173 last year, Smitty.
Well, are any of those how many of those are best ball?
Oh, a good many.
Okay.
Yeah, there was only I think 26 full season leagues.
Okay. I guess that's what I would count. The best.
See,
ball.
I don't count. Yeah, you can't count the best ball.
Why not?
Drafts.
That's my favorite part of this whole game
Well,
is
I just
drafting.
mean in terms of commitment, they're over.
Right.
They're
Oh yeah,
done.
no, but that's why I love to draft. So I just keep drafting.
But 20 anything over 20 is a lot. 20 is an addiction, problem, a divorce.
Well, actually,
30 is a divorce.
if you go back to like 2012 through 2014, when I was averaging about 70 full season leagues a year, then people would agree with you.
Yeah, but yeah, you're at the point where you're going to get hurt. I think if you keep getting overworked like that.
Hey, I consider it a downtrend from my old days, so no big deal. 26 is easy. I could do 26 in my sleep. So we keep going. So let's talk about Elliott. I mean, you mentioned it a little bit before that Elliott definitely, his numbers went up when they got Cooper, and it makes total sense. They finally had a receiver that could take some of the defense away from, fill in that box every single time. Plus, they finally realized that they could actually throw him the ball. The idiots. I mean, I never knew why they didn't throw him the ball before that on a more consistent basis, but they finally did that. So I have no problem with him anywhere. And like I said, I can make a case for all four of these guys going number one if somebody forces my hand to make a case for him. So it really comes down to personal preference, things like that. I do think, though, that Murray is going to have enough of a role where he's going to be fantasy relevant. I think he's a good running back. They're going to need somebody else to carry the ball on other times. And I think, again, in that offense, he has a chance to, be a nice, flex appeal guy or a guy that could, come in on bye weeks and give you something as well. So I'm not afraid to take him, later in the draft and give it a shot. I definitely not a handcuff type of guy. I don't take him to be a handcuff. I
would take him to be both. I'd take him to be a flex-like guy, but I think that as a handcuff, he's a pretty good one because if
I don't like handcuffs.
Well, I think you either love handcuffs or you don't, because that would be a pretty good one if you like them.
The only guy I really like handcuffing this year is Damian Williams. I really love what he did at the end of last year, but it is still only 4 games. And then they went out and got Carlos Hyde, who's another running back I do like.
I think there's a big handful of very capable handcuff situations, in my opinion. And I'm more big on that than most people. So, that's definitely a fun topic, though.
But okay, so we're going to get to that fun topic. You alluded to this in an email earlier today. I definitely want to talk some of Smitty's sleepers because let's face it, that's been a big part of your game for years now, is coming up with some of these great sleepers and following them to do something good. Okay. But right now, you alluded to it, the fact that you think Gurley is a bust. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm not on the same board with you, so I want to give you a chance to tell us how you feel about Gurley and why.
Well, I think Gurley is one of the best handcuffs in the league. So if you want to handcuff him to Henderson, that's a really good option for you. Look, I mean, the bottom line is this. I've been beating this drum since January. And I know I keep saying, I've done this more than anybody else. I'm not trying to brag about how long I've done things. Okay, maybe a little bit. But I've been talking about this since he was a top 1 to 3 overall player, taking crap loads of heat left and right, getting blasted all over the place. As I say, this guy is the biggest bust candidate of 2019. Then he falls to the 5 range. Then he falls to the bottom of the first round. Now he's all the way down to the 15 to 18 overall range.
Actually, it's been going in the beginning of the 3rd round lately.
Yeah, but it's funny because that's a trend I predicted from January. I went on and said 5,000 times in a row and ring this bell right here 5,000 times or whatever. No Todd Gurley. No Todd Gurley, no Todd Gurley. 5,000 times in a row. It took me an hour and a half as one of the things I did to kick off the fantasy football show. So from the beginning of the show's existence, so in January, I've been talking about how this is the biggest risk. Now, not only do they have Darrell Henderson, which I can talk about all day long on a side topic, but before they even drafted Darrell Henderson, you have a lot of deception going on between that coaching staff and Todd Gurley. Was he hurt? Was he not hurt? We're going to use him more in the Super Bowl. They didn't. He's not hurt. Now he's hurt. Oh, now he has arthritis. He says he doesn't know where he's going to be 6 months from now, talking about August, a few months ago. Now he's saying it's a small issue. The bottom line is this. We have not seen him return to form. since this whole injury has occurred. He has had 4 elite usage seasons in a row. One of them in 2016, he was absolutely abused. So much so that he was a third round, late second, early third round pick heading into 2017. People thought he was done. And if people thought he was done then, I don't know why it's so hard for people to think he might be done now with arthritis in his knee. You're talking about bone on bone type situation somewhere in that knee, where there's no meniscus, or there's the meniscus is getting to the point where it is potentially bone on bone. Inflammation with arthritis to that degree, one that has him limping around on TMZ videos months after the Super Bowl, or at least a good month and a half. I forget how long it was. There's a lot to be concerned about. And it's not just one thing or another. Now you have Darrell Henderson, who he's the number 1 running back in college football history in yards per attempt. Number 1, since they've started collecting the data 60 something years ago, number 1. And he's the most explosive running back in this entire 2019 NFL draft class. That's fact, not opinion, because he had more 20 and 40 plus yard runs than anybody by a lot in the nation. So for me, Darrell Henderson has Alvin Kamara written all over him. I think he's going to be elite. And you have a guy in Todd Gurley who has not shown us he's healthy. We've heard nothing but lies basically since the Super Bowl. You tell me how this can end well when he's been limping around. He's not sure where he's going to be. Everything's been in the dark. Everybody's been in the dark since. How can this end well? How can this end well for anybody drafting him at value where you still see a Mike Evans, you still see a Dalvin Cook? How? I mean, how is this anywhere near a situation people should be going toward?
Well, I'll tell you how. First of all, you talk about Kamara being fine with 190 to 200 touches. I don't see why Gurley couldn't do the same, and I still expect him to get more than that. I still expect him to get in that 225 to 250 range. They'll, work it a little better. Look, the arthritis came out of nowhere. They didn't know it existed until he took that big hit on the knee, and it swelled up, and then they did the test and realized that they were dealing with an arthritic knee. At this point, though, with the knowledge they have in medicine and all that, they can work with that. I'm not saying he can't take a big hit on that knee and be out. Absolutely can. But the same could be said for any running back in the league. You take a big hit on that knee, you could be missing the rest of the season. So I'm not really worried about that. I think they end up running him just as much. Not just as much. I'm sorry. I think they definitely take some of those carries away, and Henderson or Brown could be the beneficiary of that. That'll come to see in training camp, because the one thing that will happen is we won't see Gurley in training camp, and that's going to even drive his price even lower. You're going to start to see Gurley falling into the 4th round as people start to panic that he's not on the field, that they can't see him. Henderson is out there, and if he has any kind of a good training camp and looks good on the field, we may see a reversal of draft fortune where Henderson is all of a sudden going before Gurley.
It becomes decent value at that point. Sure, why not have him at a range where you're talking about taking him near other very risky players? But what I've been talking about all offseason is he'll fall to that range because of the risk. But it's not just one hit. It's inflammation at any point that you can't predict in a knee of that degree. Now, we don't know the exact severity of it, but we do know that they're going to hold him out of all of the preseason. They're already deciding that now. Right. We also know that he has been limping around months after the Super Bowl. He's nowhere near healthy. Now, some people say that was a pimp limp or whatever. And it's, you can watch the video.
Don't know. You
watch the video, but given somebody that's had a ton of knee issues, I've had my patellar tendon ripped off my kneecap. I've torn my ACL, my LCL, my LCL, my MCL, and my meniscus. When you have a really bad injury like he did, you're going to develop arthritis most likely in that ACL injured knee. It's pretty inevitable. But arthritis you can't improve upon. You can only manage and try and keep it at bay. But once it's at that point of inflammation, you can't drag 300-pound linemen on your back. You can't take hit after hit. You might even have inflammation from just cutting left and right and playing at gameplay without testing the knee. This is almost like a holdout situation where a guy holds out, tries to get thrown to the wolves, and he gets hurt. I see not zero. I would put a lot of money on it if there was a money line on Vegas for how many games he missed, that he's going to miss a significant amount of time and get hurt trying to run on that knee that he's not going to be prepared to do. It's just like, to me, it's like the biggest writing on the wall type situation for the backup running backs, if you want to lump them together, Brown and Henderson, that's gold right there.
But that's the problem. Right now, you got to lump them together. Everybody's assuming it's going to be Henderson. And look, I think Henderson is the better running back. But, we haven't seen him on an NFL field against NFL talent. And we've seen plenty of rookies not get on the field because their pass protection wasn't good enough. Multiple reasons why they don't get on the field. So I just find it hard to just automatically throw him in. And, guys are now drafting him in the 4th round. And to me, I just, unless Gurley misses at least 8 games, I don't see how Henderson can pay off in a 4th round pick.
I think that as I've said since January, layers of this onion will be peeled back little by little. Now it's gone back in a more, you could say, positive direction because Gurley went out. He came out and said that it's a small thing. He's dealt with bigger or whatever. That kind of put some of the Gurley believers like in full force, like he's back mode. And so his ADP has been kind of steadily climbing or staying the same versus continuing to fall.
Actually, I got to disagree with you because in the FFWC drafts that I've been watching, he is continuously starting to fall now into the 3rd round.
I did a couple expert Instagram leagues. He went in the high 2nd round. So it depends.
If you were in a league with me, I'd take him in the high 2nd round.
Yeah. So again, so it depends on the league circles you're in or whatever. But in general, I would say you're either going to find him still in the 2nd round, not in the 3rd yet on average, maybe in the leagues that you're doing there. But the leagues I'm doing, and he's going in the 2nd. And I don't know, man. I'll continue to beat this like a dead horse over and over because you won't see Gurley probably fall to me at a range where I'm going to take him because I'm going to let him be someone else's problem to the point where, he's getting taken away before I'm willing to do it. And I'm taking Henderson everywhere I can. And I have confidence that this is going to be a win a league situation now where you win your fantasy league because you have Henderson on your bench, similar to James Conner last year. My number 2 bold prediction, I beat that like a dead horse. Same with Pat Mahomes. He was my number 1. These were crazy then too. So I'm used to it sounding crazy to people. And at some point you do have to bank on people we haven't seen the evidence for. There's gut instinct, there's film, there's stats, there's Darrell Henderson being the number 1 running back in college football history, yards per touch. There's a lot going in favor of him, not just gut instinct. But when you mix the facts and the stats with that gut instinct that I have, I feel like I can really hone in on a potential breakout candidate and hitting those more often than not. And that's how I come up with some of these sleepers and the bold predictions, is putting all those components together. And Henderson screaming breakout.
I get what you're saying, but where do you have him ranked currently in your rankings?
So I think that it depends again on you're saying 4th round. He's not going on the 4th round in any drafts that I'm doing, and I'm doing a ton of drafts. So we must be drafting in different circles that have different ADPs. But in general, you can get him in the 6th round in a redraft league. Now, a dynasty league, his value could be in the 4th round. So if you're talking dynasty, I could see that. And I would take him where I get to a point in a draft, especially in dynasty, where I don't feel like the guys are super, super solid. I feel like it's time to say, hey, is it worth, can I live without this guy? And so in the 6th round, I feel that way in redraft. I feel like I can take or leave these guys. I could take a guy 1 or 2 rounds below to fill into my lineup and make sure that I get Henderson. So I'll take Henderson all day at the top of the 6th, because that is a bold prediction that won't make or break. It won't break your season, but it will make your season. I've had people say, Smitty, if you're wrong about this, you're going to ruin a lot of leagues. No, I'm not, because where I'm telling people to pass on Todd Gurley, you're taking a very safe player that can be just as good than a limited Todd Gurley. You're not missing anything if you land your player. And I'm not making anybody miss a league telling them to grab Henderson in the 6th round, because those players are sketchy at best in that range. You can get a good player, but you could also find like a Landry. You might like Landry. I can see somebody saying, oh, I'd rather have Landry in my lineup than Henderson on my bench. Well, I look at it like I'd rather take a player a round or 2 later, shove them into my lineup, and have Henderson in waiting, a diamond in the rough. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I build my teams.
Frank, any thoughts?
So, Smitty, it's almost like we're the exact same person, because since February, I went on the Back Row Fantasy Show in February, and I said that Gurley was going to be a bust this year. He's my RB21 in my rankings. I totally believe that his knees problem is is bigger than everybody's leading on to be. You don't match the offer sheet for Malcolm Brown, and then you don't trade up and draft Henderson if you're not worried about Gurley's knees.
Well, wait, I disagree with both of those things. First of all, they got Malcolm Brown at a good price. Why not bring him back? They still like the guy. They think he's a talented running back. And to go grab a good running back, it makes all the sense in the world. Let's face it. Gurley has had a lot of usage. Absolutely. I grant you that. If he does break down, then it's the smartest move in the world for them to grab him. So, none of that really affects how I look at Gurley this year. I'm not talking about him in a dynasty. But this year, I think Gurley is still going to be a top-producing running back, and I just can't get off of that.
I predict that this is a bold take. This isn't my saying this will 100% happen. If I'm wrong, throw me to the wolves or whatever. But I predict that he won't be ready for week 1, and I think that evidence will come out. Like I said, the layers of that onion being peeled back. There are some rumors about them maybe even looking at other running backs right now. We'll see how that's been some chatter. We'll see if that has any concrete evidence at all. But I'm just saying that they're more worried behind closed doors than we think. And Henderson was proof.
Yeah, but you think they're more worried about it. We're not sure.
I'm not sure, but I can tell you that if his knee is even remotely as bad as we think it is, as I think it is, his knee will not hold up under the grind and usage of a running back that gets the kind of work that he gets, that carries the kind of people on his back. He won't hold up. There's no way that knee can hold up if he has severe arthritis in there.
Yeah, but we don't know if it's severe yet. That's what I'm trying to say. We don't know the level of the arthritis. There's many different levels of arthritis.
This is how I analyze something and take the risk that I might be wrong in my assessment that it is wrong. This is how I go about it. So if we had seen him bounce back, like in the case of Dalvin Cook, very injury-prone person. I see people throw that in my face a lot. Like, hey, well, you like Dalvin Cook. How come you don't like Todd Gurley? We've seen Dalvin Cook bounce back. At the end of the year, he looked like his old self. He also had an injury. He's also very younger. He's much younger, but he's recovered from that injury. So if Todd Gurley had shown us any sign that he had recovered, if he had not struggled months later walking around on the street, if they weren't so deceptive about it, all of those things together, that makes me believe that the suspicion I have is correct. And I'm willing to bank on that. And all of the red flags together allow me to say, I'm willing to take the risk that I could be wrong about the severity. But again, it's all about writing on the wall for me. All of these things together, and the fact that they went up, they drafted up to get Henderson, the fact that he is one of the most home run hitting backs in college football, and the fact that Gurley hasn't had if you look at the numbers, the breakaway runs that he used to have, the big plays that he used to have.
I got it. Wait. First of all, let's take a step back. If you look at last year, he had 5 games with under 20 touches. 5. And they were all in the last 8 games of the season, okay? Of the last 8 games he played. In those 8 games, even though 5 of them were under 20 touches, he still averaged over 26 fantasy points a game and was still the number 2 running back in the league over that span.
The scoring was there for him. And if you put someone like Henderson in there, he would have scored the same, if not more. I firmly believe that. And I could be called crazy for that. And you could be called crazy for a lot of things, but yeah. But Camaro was my number 5 bold prediction his rookie year, and I said he'd be a top 1 to 5 running back. And I forget who the running back I named him to be comparable to, but I wish who it was. But I was told you can't compare a guy that's never played a down. Yes, I can. I do it all the time, and I'll continue to do it. That Darrell Henderson's the next Alvin Kamara. I'll say that even if I haven't seen him play an NFL snap.
Smitty, so we just met tonight, and I don't know if you know how I came about, but I started all this on myself on Twitter by doing hot takes.
Oh, okay. No, I
dubbed myself the hot take guru, and everybody knows me as Fuego Frank because I spit fire. Like that's all I do. So everything you're saying, I've believed since day one about Todd Gurley.
Nice.
I think Darrell Henderson is going to be a very good running back in the NFL. I think there's a reason.
That either.
There's a reason they traded up for him. And Gurley, you don't spend the whole offseason and whole season trying to win a Super Bowl and then get to the Super Bowl and not use him if there's not something seriously wrong.
But again, wait. Okay, again, I'm so tired of that argument because that argument doesn't hold water. They didn't know he had arthritis up to that point.
They knew he had a knee injury though.
But he's had knee injuries before. This, he's coming off the torn ACL he had to deal with. So this is nothing new. They knew
arthritis is very common in an ACL.
I totally agree. I've done it. I have it. I understand. But they didn't at that point. They didn't know it was there.
An injury-prone player holding out and coming in is like it's inevitable for them to be looking at a high percentage of getting hurt if you hold out. This is going to be like a holdout situation with one of the guys that has the most concerning knees in the NFL. He's not going to play any preseason. He's going to go out and take hits on his knee, and people are going to target that knee because this is the NFL. He is not going to stay healthy. There is just, I almost want to put a 0% chance on it, but I know I can't. I know I can't say that, but I almost want to because with him not playing any preseason football, not showing us he's ever returned to form and having one of the most aggressive volumes of usage over a 4-year span, players fall off the face of the earth after 5 years. Look at Sean Alexander, 5 years, completely fell off the face of the earth. Larry Johnson, 2 years. Priest Holmes, he had the rookie year, then he had like a injury hiatus, 5 years. Todd Gurley, with arthritis, with the likely severity, the likelihood that he has severe arthritis in his knee, which is what I'm predicting, mixed with the fact that he has had 4 of those years, you're telling me this is the 1 year where he has the one last hurrah, the one last year with that knee injury, he's going to have that one more elite season because he's probably only got one at best if he was healthy, because that's the trajectory of a running back. 5 years, boom, you're done at that usage. There's just no running backs anymore that can run for a 6 year. So to predict,
unless their name is Frank Gore or Adrian Peterson.
Well, yeah, you could use AP. I don't know if I'd say Frank Gore has been elite, but Frank.
I'm not saying he's been elite, but he's been a heavily utilized guy even at 35. So
Frank Gore's a weird case because
he is a weird
I've been predicting injury for him for about 7 years now.
He's a monster. That boy is just a monster.
If you want,
can't call him a boy.
My kryptonite on missing on an injury prediction is Frank Gore, because Frank Gore won't go away.
Yeah, he just won't. But as much as the other running backs want him to go away.
Watch him lead that backfield this year. and carries and yards and touchdowns.
Yeah. So I went out and I think it was March. I did a video. I think it was March. And I said Henderson would outscore Gurley, and you should see the comments on that sucker. But I stand behind that. Darrell Henderson, I have no question about it. It's not a hot take to me. This is like I said, Gurley's going to be one of the handcuffs that you have. I think Darrell Henderson outscores Gurley, and that's not even a question.
Wow, there you go. That's a bold pick. You are known for those bold picks. I don't know. I just don't see it. I think people are panicking just a little bit too much, but we shall see. That's a great thing about this. Right now, none of us are wrong.
Well, I do like that I was so wrong in January because I said he was a bust when he was a top 3. I like that I was still pretty wrong in February. I like in March. I like how it's gotten a little less crazy. And now it's not, hey, Smitty, you were right. I get no pats on the back, no cookies, nothing waiting for me for my predicting of his decline in ADP. All I have now are the people left over that say you're still wrong. He's not going to bust. He's a great value in the 2nd and 3rd round. Well, what happened to where all the hate I got when I said he would fall into the 2nd round? It's just
you're never gonna get a pat on the back. You're just gonna get the guy from 2011 that was like, well, you said Frank Gore was gonna get injured that year, and for me not to draft him, and then it cost me my championship.
Yeah, no,
that's the only people you get that come back to you.
Now you had mentioned before that the whole thing with Connor and Henderson, that same type of vibe. And I was with you with Connor last year. If you go back to the preseason on the FNTSY show, you'll hear me say a million times that I didn't think Bell was going to sign before week 10 and that Connor was to play. Oh, I thought all preseason. Yeah. I figured for sure that Bell was going to sit out till week 10. At that point, we were told that he would have to come back in week 10 to at least accrue the season so he could be free after that. But then, of course, we found out that it wasn't the case, and he sat out the whole year. But, you didn't have to pay even a 4th, 5th, 6th rounder for Connor when you drafted him last year. You could still get him much later than that, and because most people weren't buying into that.
And you don't have to pay that kind of price tag for Jalen Samuels and Benny Snell, which is the same recipe, same formula, same story. I think it's a little bit differently told because we don't have a holdout situation. But to bring up Connor, he's falling in ADP again, something that I said would happen. But he was a top 7 to 10 overall player, which was asinine, given that there's so many red flags, just like with Todd Gurley surrounding James Conner. And he was
okay, wait. What name some of those red flags you talk about? I think his ADP dropped because he opened his stupid mouth and said, "Oh yeah, we're going to spread the ball out to all the running backs," and everybody just panicked that he wasn't going to be the bell cow. Well, you know what? That offense uses a bell cow. They don't use multiple backs. They use one guy, and that one guy is going to be James Conner. I don't see, everybody panicking over him saying, "Oh, we're going to spread the ball out to all the running backs." Who cares what he says? He doesn't know a damn thing.
Again, it comes down to multiple components of trying to get something like this right. The gut instinct part is not enough. You're going to miss half the time on that. And for me, I have a lot of gut instinct on him busting, but the facts are, the red flags are, he broke down at a certain point last year. And I remember more than anybody, because I have an Ask Smitty feature, and I got email after email for multiple weeks in a row going, "Smitty, do I need to cut bait? Should I trade him for this garbage player?" I'm like, no, even then I'm like, no, hang on to him. Don't trade him for trash. I had people freaking out for multiple weeks because he hit a wall. Then he got hurt and he broke down. Now, yeah, one of those things by themselves isn't going to make me run for the hills. But the fact that Samuels looked so amazing when he was in there, the fact that I actually coined or paired the two together in my bold prediction last year as being a duo you need to have together, because Samuels is just as good as Connor and he's a better wide receiver. And he proved that in college. And his college coach from NC State, Eddie Faulkner, is now the Steelers running backs coach. So you have that component in there, a rapport between coach and player. And Faulkner used him all over the field, so much so that Samuels was tight end eligible in his rookie year last year in Yahoo League. So if anybody thinks that Faulkner, his old former college coach, that's now the Steelers running back coach, isn't going to shove Samuels out there all over the field, even on passing downs, which would be good, they both be on the field, but that's going to give him time to shine. And if Connor can't stay healthy, which is one of my predictions here, Samuels will grab the job and run with it. But Snell is very talented too. So you need to have the duo together. But my play is, and it's been since Connor was a top 7 pick, top 7 to 10, which is risky as hell. Pass, take a safer player, grab if your rosters are deep and you can hold running backs like this. If you're in a Yahoo League with 5 roster spots on a running back, you can't. But you have no business drafting Connor anyways, because you can't back him up in a Yahoo League. But my play has been, and still is, take a safer player with your place where you're gonna take Connor. Grab both the backups. You have yourself a sleeping giant running back in Snell and Samuels.
Okay, now wait. You're talking about taking a safer running back. Well, all the running backs in that round 2 range. Okay, you're not talking running backs. You're talking players. Okay, I get that. I could see that with the wide receivers, but almost all of the running backs that fall in that round 2, early round 3 range have red flags. You talked about Dalvin Cook. I love Dalvin Cook, but it's obvious he has a red flag. He hasn't been able to stay healthy in the 2 years he's been here. Granted, he looked good at the end of the season, but he still hasn't been able to stay on the field for 16 games or even close to it yet. So that's a red flag. Fournette, the same thing. All of these guys, Damian Williams, can he do more than, 4 games, 6 games? Can he last long enough to keep that job? That's going to be a question. All of those guys have question marks. Even Joe Mixon had to deal with injuries last year. They drafted the left tackle that was supposed to be the guy there, and he's out for the season already. So there's so many question marks in that round of running backs that I'm almost finding myself wanting to get out of that round, take a safe wide receiver, maybe even a tight end there, and go into the 3rd and 4th range and go for somebody like a Jacobs or a Montgomery or somebody like that.
I like that thinking, and a zero running back approach, or at least a partial zero running back approach, is warranted. Get yourself a Montgomery as your starting running back, your number 1 running back. Load up on Mike Evans and Hopkins. That is a recipe, I think, for domination. Or take a Kittle in the 3rd round and start grabbing. If Aaron Jones, you're so lucky to get him in the 4th round, that's a great way to build a cheap running back stable while going wide receiver George Kittle, or wide receiver Pat Mahomes, if you like that play. Not everybody does, but that is a good way to win a league. I'm all about trying all these different strategies. There's not one way to win. I do 0 running back. I do 0 wide receiver. I do balanced approaches. I do whatever, especially if I'm in an auction and I can control my own destiny. But my biggest thing is best player available. And I don't feel like Connor is. I don't feel like Mixon is. I don't feel like Gurley is at any of the places you're going to find them.
Okay, let me ask you another one. How do you feel about Le'Veon Bell this year? Because there's definitely one side or the other with Bell. Either you love him or you don't. And again, which way do you fall on Bell's side?
I'll put it this way. I wouldn't take him in multiple leagues because I wouldn't feel like that was worth the risk. I feel like there is significant risk there, but I think he also has top 5 running back appeal still. So if you can get him at like 9 or 10, it's worth owning some shares in 2019, but just an unlimited amount, just to make sure you're not burning down the house in all your leagues. But I mean, he's going to get less receptions than any of us are used to, because their number 1 wide receiver last year was like 50 receptions, I believe. Was it Robbie Anderson?
Robbie Anderson.
I mean, so you got to think he's at a max of 50 receptions. Who knows? Maybe, Darnold takes a step forward. I don't think he will. I'm not super big on that Jets offense, but in the right spot, I'd take him, because I think his floor and the risk is it's right there. I don't think it's a great value, but I think it's about right. So that means he's neither home run or like super, super big risk. He's just about right, which isn't normally what I draft. So you might see me take a Hopkins or an Adams or a Mike Thomas even, who falls sometimes to the 2nd, which is crazy to me. But those guys feel like they have a little bit more bang for the buck. That's kind of how I feel about it. I'm indifferent.
Yeah, I'm with you. Look, I keep thinking about it. Look, Connor last year, before he broke down, and he did break down, he hadn't had that kind of usage in a while, and he did break down. I'll grant you that. But up until that point, his numbers across the board were better than Le'Veon Bell's were in any season he was with the Steelers. His numbers were better. Every which way, his numbers were better. So now, you got Bell going to the Jets with a bad offensive line that won't allow him to dance behind it, because they won't give him the time. So he's going to have to kind of change his running style to where he's hitting holes much quicker and much more decisively than he ever did with Pittsburgh. He doesn't have the Pro Bowl quarterback. He doesn't have the Pro Bowl wide receiver. He just basically doesn't have any of the tools around him. And now he's got an offensive head coach who, probably runs one of the fewest number of plays in a game in the league. And I can't get behind Le'Veon Bell anywhere in the first. I know he has that upside if everything clicks. I just think there's just too many things that could go against him that there's no way I could take him.
What do you think, Frank? Where are you at on Bell?
So one of my hot takes that I did before the season back in the beginning of May was that Le'Veon Bell won't have 800 all-purpose yards. So
okay, now see, wait. There's hot takes, and then there's just trying to get your name out there, and hopefully you hit on one of them, and then for the rest of the season or into next year, hey, I hit on that guy. Meanwhile, you're not talking about the other 82
you have to be predicting
hot
injury
takes.
then, right, Frank?
yes.
Okay, so he's predicting injury more so than the 800 yards. That's what I would lead with. That way you got guys.
Yeah, it makes a little bit more sense. Smitty with the save.
When's the last time we've seen him play a whole season? He sat out all last year. He's been smoking weed because he's taking pictures of it on Instagram.
So that's good for his body. I have no problem with that.
I almost didn't say this because I usually don't say this in public because I feel like people don't take it the right way. But am I the only one that has crossed my mind that he was planning to come back? But because he does kind of lean toward the side of doing some extracurricular activities, do you think that he thought at some point he might fail a test, so he just stayed out of it?
Absolutely.
For some reason?
No. See, I don't. Okay, and I'll tell you why. At the time, we were all being told that he had to come back in week 10 to get that accrued season. We were all being told that. It wasn't until like a week before that all of a sudden somebody come out and said, "Oh, whoa, hold on. He doesn't have to come back in week 10 to get this accrued season for whatever reason. It's already accrued. He's good to go, even if he doesn't play." And at that point, he said, "Well, why the hell am I going to step on the field then? It doesn't make any sense if I got to step on the field when I'm trying to play for a big contract next year."
Part of me wonders if he did this in the beginning. Because
no, I'm not saying it can't be. Absolutely,
it just crossed my mind.
Could be. Yeah, right. There's no doubt about it.
Well, you're talking about in training camp.
Yeah,
like it would be a good way out.
It would be a good way out. You would avoid that year-long ban.
And even before that, I just thought he was going to sit out week 10.
I even think
just to really spite the team.
He had the same
intent.
I think he still had the same mindset as we all did, that he could come back week 10, and then when he realized he was sitting there one day smoking on his couch, he's like, "Shit, it's week 8. I'm not gonna be able to pass this test in a week and a half."
There's so many ways to pass those tests, and those guys know them all.
This is unconfirmed speculation, but well, it just crossed my mind. I usually don't bring it up because I feel like it sounds like an X-File type thinking. Straight out of
the anything is possible. These guys are all human beings, and we're coming to find out that finally the NFL is starting to at least discuss the possibility that players smoking marijuana isn't bad for them. Hey, look, I tend to agree. I'd much rather them smoke marijuana than drink alcohol and do stupid stuff.
There was one other player in the news recently. So speaking of people that just can't stay out of trouble, Kareem Hunt, what is your take on the Nick Chubb, rise in ADP? Do you guys like Nick Chubb at his current, high second ADP, breaching maybe the bottom of the first round by August?
No, but because no matter what, if I'm in drafting and I have a top 4 pick, I'm taking one of the running backs. If I don't, I'm going wide receiver in the first 2 rounds.
See, I don't like getting into that thinking where I'm going to do this. Yeah, because every draft is different. You got to be fluid. This is what I try to impart to everybody. Don't go in with the mindset that, after the first 3 rounds, I have to have 2 running backs and 1 wide receiver. Because if that isn't the right move when it comes time for you to draft, you shouldn't make that.
You're forgetting that I know Frank. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what Frank's thinking. Frank is thinking that there is no running back that competes with any of the wide receivers he likes there. No. So Frank, I got you.
Frank
doesn't need to speak. I'll just tell you what Frank's
between Hopkins, Adams, Thomas, Juju, Evans.
So you have no concern over Juju with the fact of he's now going to be the true number 1 and probably facing harder defenses?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. I have a little hesitation. He's not in those same tier as those guys for me.
Oh, one more note on Harry. I'm Harry. Sorry, I was thinking N'Keal Harry at the moment. We can talk about him too. But Henderson, there's an interesting information out there on his 40 time that the equipment they used during his 40 had a malfunction, and there are multiple scouts, not one, like 3 or more, that say that he clocked a 4.37. So there's another little bit of information there about Henderson that I think people are overlooking how quick this guy is.
So I have nothing against Henderson. I thought Henderson was great in college.
It's one of the only things I talk about, so I just had to head back in that direction.
So speaking of Harry, I saw a tweet the other day, and it said that everybody's worried because Harry's struggling in practice because he's going against Gilmore. But Goff, Mahomes, and I don't remember who they played the round before in the first round of the playoffs. But they said the 3 quarterbacks that the Patriots faced only targeted Gilmore 13 times total. So maybe we shouldn't be worried that Harry's struggling.
And I came out in January. I got it up on the I would move my camera right now, but on one of my signs I put bold. I did a sketch of him, a hand drawn sketch by me. Put it on the sign, and I did an unboxing of the sign when it came in. I put the video up and said, this will be my scarlet letter all year. If I'm wrong, it's going to be on my wall in my studio all year, that N'Keal Harry would be a top 1 to 4 overall wide receiver within 1 to 2 years, meaning that entering his 3rd year, he will be that good. I think N'Keal Harry is the real deal, the next top 4 wide receiver.
I like N'Keal Harry too. I don't think it happens quite so fast this year, but I definitely like him
1 to
going
3,
forward big time. Yeah.
1 to 2 years, meaning his third
Yeah,
year.
I agree with you. I think he's the most pro ready. Right behind him, though, really close for me was A.J. Brown. Unfortunately, the landing spot wasn't quite so good.
That's a situation where
But the problem we have with Harry, though, is how much longer does Brady hold on?
Well-
I mean, if they win another one, do you think he wants to come back again?
But if Harry's that good, he can be quarterback proof just like Hopkins is.
Yeah,
Hopkins
I
is
mean, look
quarterback
at Calvin Johnson. Look at Hopkins before Watson. The truly elite like Calvin Johnson, they can survive and they'll make the.
Oh, no,
QB better.
yeah, I'm not saying he can't survive. I'm just wondering if he can really thrive.
But if the hoodie stays, we don't know if he would. But if the hoodie was there, I believe in his talent.
If the hoodie stays, I agree. The man is definitely the best coach in the game.
Stidham is a kind of a underrated QB that they drafted. Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah.
He has a lot of the qualities that Tom Brady had when he came out of college, kind of unknown, passes very similar. I think they could develop him into a pretty good quarterback if the hoodie stays and helps develop him. But yeah, I'm not too worried about things that are that far down the road. I think you missed the boat when you start worrying about, okay, well, what happens 2 years?
It could be 2 years now, but you're saying a window of 1 to 3. If that happens in 2, it would affect that window.
It could, but he could also be, like Frank said, in a position where he's literally, able to produce numbers no matter who's throwing him the ball. And if look at Kyler Murray, how easy it was. The NFL is, I feel like fantasy football analysts, especially ones that have been around like we have forever, would be such an asset to draft scouting, like Moneyball, how ridiculous that sounded when it went down. I think that it's so easy to go change your franchise, and draft picks are valued so strangely that look what you can do if you really want to. You can go get a Kyler Murray, change your organization forever. And I think Arizona will do that. And I'm not biased to AC because I'm in Arizona. I'm very pessimistic of the Cardinals a lot of the time, but look how quickly they change directions, which gives me hope for like AJ Brown because his situation sucks. But a team could go ahead and make a move like that at any time. So if they feel like, hey, and New England feels like that kind of team, we've got Harry, we've got Damian Harris, who's a whole nother topic. I love Damian Harris this year. And we have this awesome core here. Let's go get ourselves a QB. They're the kind of teams that would go do that. And I
agree. I mean, hopefully that works out all those ways. I do. I like Harry as well. I like AJ Brown. Hopefully it works out the way we hope. But we're running out of time. We didn't even cover half the stuff in the show sheet, but we're running out of time. And I got to ask you, outside of any of the people we've talked about, who is the one sleeper that you're absolutely in love with that we haven't discussed so far?
Okay, let me rack my brain here and actually pull up my bold predictions and decide which one I'm going to give out here, because this is the premium content.
Oh, Smitty's premiums. Hey, he's not kidding. He's done a good job of selecting sleepers. That's how he got his name.
Let's see. I'll say this. I'll say that Calvin Ridley is going to be – there's going to be a changing of the guard happening before people really see this coming and expect it coming. Julio's got the foot. That's always a concern. Yeah, he's probably going to be elite this year. I'm not saying Julio won't be, but by the end of the year, I think we very well could be talking about Calvin Ridley like we're talking about Juju this year. If you forget already, because a lot of people have short memories, Juju was like looking at the board here, because I have a mock draft up here from February. I keep it up here. I did it on my live 24-hour live stream when I kicked off the fantasy football show. Did a 24-hour live stream. Were you there, Jim? Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. I absolutely did.
Okay, so I was on for 24 straight hours. We did a mock draft. I've kept it on this board because it's fun to reflect back on. But I got a marker board, and Juju went – where did he go? Forgive me. I'm trying to find him. I think it was the – oh, he went super high on that one. Never mind. That's a bad example. Because we drafted him with my sleeper U people, and they drafted him pretty high.
Don't worry, we can edit that out when other people listen to it later. The live show,
that wasn't dramatic, was it? Yeah. But Juju was going at like the tail end of the second round at the very highest when Antonio Brown was still on the roster. So it's very easy to say, oh, right now that can't happen, or Calvin Ridley can't be that good. But Calvin Ridley, to me, is special, and I think we see him rise up and become one of those guys that you start talking about around the, next year, around the Julio range, but maybe like I'd say the late second round, early third round. He's already going really high, higher than I ever expected people to like kind of,
They look at those 10 touchdowns and that,
yeah. And he's
that
so much more
draws him.
capable of scoring TDs. He's such an explosive playmaker. We're going to see him get better too, but that's one of my favorites. I think the Browns are going to do awesome. I've got my Super Bowl prediction ticket right here, that the Browns will win the Super Bowl. I don't know that they'll win it. I think that they'll do pretty well. I think Mayfield's going to have a big year. I've got a lot of stuff on my bold predictions that I'd like to reveal, but I think I'll hold back and leave you with those nuggets because Henderson's on there. I've already dished out a few of them already. So
fair enough. That's why we like to have guests on the show, talk about different things like that, and get their takes. That's how it works. Of course, folks, you are listening to the Fantasy Football Champs After Dark. We're just about done here. Smitty, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? And again, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it muchly.
Yeah, first and foremost, youtube.com/The Fantasy Football Show. You can also go to thefantasyfootballshow.com or sleeperu.com. Sleeperu.com is where all my bold predictions, the rankings, stuff like this, you'll find all that there. But definitely subscribe to me on YouTube and on Instagram. Same username, The Fantasy Football Show. You can find me at both Instagram and YouTube at that handle. But yeah, you'll see me all over YouTube with the Todd Gurley stuff, the Connor stuff, the Henderson stuff. I've got even that little Christmas story that I tell in front of the fireplace. I don't know if you've seen that yet, Jim, but I do.
I think I missed that one.
I do a nice little storytelling time about how Daryl Henderson ruined Todd Gurley's Christmas. It's tis the night before Christmas and all through the house. Little story that I tell. It's a pretty good one. But look at that on YouTube. You'll like it. It's on my last. I think it's on the end of my last video. I put it every once in a while.
I'll have to take a look at that. I missed that one totally.
Yeah.
Frank, tell everybody where they can find you, buddy.
Where are you hot taking, Frank?
So you can find me at DHH_Frank. And Smitty, since you're here and you built yourself off the bold takes, I'll leave you with one more. Robert Foster will be a wide receiver too this year. I believe in him. I think he's got a good repertoire with Josh Allen last year. Rapport, sure, whatever. With Josh Allen last year, and I think he's one of my my bold predictions this year.
He's on my bold predictions list, and I didn't mention him. So again, we're twinsies here.
We are. I guess I have to come on the Fantasy Football Show, and we'll talk without Jim, and we can just
Oh yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. You two guys just agreeing on everything back. That'd be loads of fun. Everybody wants to hear that. Look, folks, we appreciate you coming out and listening to us every Friday night. If you're here on YouTube, if not, feel free to listen to us on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Google, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, basically wherever you can listen to podcasts, you can listen to us. Please, though, feel free to give us a comment or give us a thumbs up or give us a rating. I'm not going to tell you to give us a 5-star rating. Give us what you think we're worth, and just don't really drag Frank down in the comments. Okay, we're working on it. Don't worry about it.
And I don't know how you feel about this, Jim, but I don't know if you want to have some of this content on a different channel or not. If you don't, that's cool. But I'd be more than willing to throw this on my channel if you give me a copy of it.
Absolutely. I'll definitely do that.
Yeah, that way my users would love to get the interaction and get to know you guys. It kind of opens the door to more audience for you guys. So yeah, send me a copy.
Absolutely, we'll do that. Guys, thank you for spending Friday nights with us. We definitely appreciate it. We are out. We'll talk to you guys next week. Have a good weekend, folks.
Thanks, guys.
Later, y'all.